Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Pretty cool guest today. Known her for a little bit. So without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to somebody who I hold in very high regard ever since she, well, let's be honest, she came to my baby's, what do you call that? What do you call it, Kasey?
A baby shower?
Baby shower, there you go. Whew. Yeah, basically forced her way to my baby shower and immediately made my entire family love her. One of the best persons I've ever heard sell, so good at painting the picture, knowing it's an emotional sell, but also knowing how to be very direct with the client and helping them understand where the holes are in their coverage, and then helping them together as a team fill that hole. That way their family's always protected. So without further ado, everybody drop a 1 in the chat for Miss Kasey Thatcher. She just got her highlights done. She's ready to rock. So I just kind of want to dive in. There's a lot of, women out there and single mothers that might be interested in kind of jumping into this thing. And so a lot of the conversation that I have with you is going to be kind of circled around that. But first and foremost, I kind of want to just start off with, where did you grow up? What was your life like in the beginning?
Well, in the beginning of time, it's really hard. My mom breastfed me for most of my infanthood.
Yeah.
Cool. I grew up in Clovis, California, born and raised in the Central Valley. Always felt like I was never going to stay there because I didn't feel like there was going to be opportunities for me to grow in the way that I wanted to grow. So I graduated at 17 and I started traveling. I went all over America and landed in Australia for a month and came back and felt like a completely different person. I mean, I was young. I had to make connections on my own. I had very little money. I went to Subway and I was like, I'll clean your dishes if you let me make a sandwich. Kind of like that's just the experience that I wanted and I had. And I came back and felt like, all right, like sky's the limit. If we can do this, like what can't we do? So I got into optical at 18. I started in Fresno, California. And a few months later, I told my family, my mom had always told me, you need to get somewhere in like a big city where you're going to be able to meet connections and grow. And you're not going to really do that in the Central Valley. So my mom really pushed me to travel and to get out of where I was born. So I was working at Stanton Optical and I put in my resume and wrote this novel recommending myself to Luxottica. And I got a phone call from the regional manager. I sat next to a dumpster at Starbucks and I got hired as the optical manager in Santa Monica and she asked me to move immediately. So
wow.
I packed my bags. I was living with my grandparents at that time and I told them I had gotten a position to manage an optical shop in Santa Monica and I was going to take it. So I moved there. I got into optical. I took my shop to #1 within the first few months and then I got promoted to a larger store in Culver City, California, which is right there near Santa Monica, and started managing that lens crafters. I met my kid's dad. We ended up moving to Utah for a couple years. I had Callie, and that's where I met Samir. So I transferred over to Lens Crafters in Utah. I was the retail manager. Our general manager was Kelly Kay. And Samir was our Bosnian college associate that popped in and loved holding a clipboard and taking notes and just being his great self. So
just to be fair, before we go on, this is where everything went downhill, right? When you met Samir?
So far downhill. I was like, my life took a spin. That's when the dark hole just started. No, that's when things got great. So I actually was with Anita too. Anita and Samir both worked at Lens Crafters. And then I ended up moving out of Utah to Michigan. And I had my second daughter, Abby, and she had a lot of health conditions. So we were in and out, we were in the NICU and I couldn't give my availability to Lens Crafters because of what she was going through. And so I told them and they said, if you can't give us your availability, you're terminated. And I couldn't. And so I got a letter on December 31st that I was terminated from my 7-year position at Lens Crafters. Wow. And I was like, all right, looks like I'm a stay-at-home mom. Like, got to figure this out. So I was a stay-at-home mom and I reached out to Samir a little bit after, and I said, hey, what are you doing now? I see all your posts on social media, like insurance, like what is it? He said, yeah, and Kelly K is actually doing it with me. And Kelly was our mentor. Like Kelly K was the man that we went to that was like our dad of business for both Samir and I. And so I knew like if Samir and Kelly were in this together, like that was cool. That night, I got a call from Kelly and he said, hey, so Samir said, you're interested in insurance. I told him, I think you'd be the best one. We got to get you. What do you want to do? And I was like, I'm a stay-at-home mom. Like, no, I'm good. I don't know what you're talking about. I just asked him what he's doing. And he said, I'll pay you to dial for me. You see what I bring in income. I'll pay you hourly or commission and work on your license. Get your license. And I said, okay, fine. I don't have, we need extra income. Like, let's do it. I can stay at home. Kelly knew my situation. I was like, let's go. So I started dialing for him. He offered me hourly or commission. I said, I know how you sell. I want your commission. So give me 10% of every sale that I book for you. And money started coming in. And I was like, oh my God, this is 10% of what he's making. Yeah. I want 100%. So I started studying. I failed my exam twice. And then we lost Kelly. And that was horribly hard for Samir and I. Yeah. And to be honest, I didn't want to look at insurance. I didn't want to hear anything about it. I was done. It was just put such a bad taste in my mouth because everything I connected was to Kelly. And then things happened, situations in my relationship got really bad, and I was a single mom, so I knew it was time to like make it or break it. And I went and I took that test for a third time, and I was like, I gotta pass this.
Gotta pass it this time.
And I passed it, and I jumped around in the parking lot for 10 minutes, literally like a crazy maniac, because I was like, we're doing this, God, we got this. So I got my license in December of 2021. And in January of 2022 is when I started doing in-home.
Let's talk about the first 3 to 6 months, especially for those new agents here, right? What was that like for you, the first 3 to 6 months?
In the business?
Yeah.
The first 3 to 6 months were hard. I was really transitioning. I mean, I was a stay-at-home mom. I had a daughter that was in and out of a lot of specialist visits, still is. And a 2-year-old at that time. And I was trying to figure out how the heck I was supposed to dial with kids screaming in the background and asking me for food, and I hadn't showered, and it was really hard, but it was about, I had the mindset of, I've never failed and my kids are not going to fail. I won't let my kids fail. So I have to figure this out. I didn't care what I had to do. I was just going to do it. And so I started making those dials, and that's when we were in home. And so whether that meant I had like a freaking pocket knife and pepper spray in my pocket, like I was gonna go do it, and I was gonna write that policy, and I was gonna come home and tell my kids we've got another month overhead, like that's it. Yeah. And so I did. And so I was dialing all day, every day, as much as I could. I would sit, I didn't have a desk, I didn't have anything. I would lock myself in my room or shut it as much as I could, was still hearing my daughters. And I would sit on my bed or sit on my floor against my bed, and I would just dial on the ground for like 10 hours straight, and I would book appointments.
So for those who never did in-home like we did, kind of give them an idea, when did we dial and how did we dial? Like dial days, what did that look like? So
we typically dial Mondays, book for Tuesday, Wednesday, dial Thursday, book for Friday, Saturday. And so and anytime you had extra time, if you got no-showed, because you would drive 45 minutes to a house and then they would not be there. And you had another hour and a half until your next appointment on the other side of town. So you'd sit there in your car and you dial as much as you can. And so that's what my life looked like. And it was really just trying to figure out how the heck to get there and make it work. And somehow by the grace of God, we always managed. But that was really hard, and especially being in home. And so then things in Michigan started getting a little bit harder, and mentally for me, I was kind of just spiraling downhill. And I remember calling Anita and Samir, and they were like, get out to Utah. You need your friends. I'm a really social person, but I was going through so much in a relationship that for almost 5 years, I didn't have a single friend. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't know anybody around me in Michigan. And it was really hard. And so they were like, you need friends, you need community, like come back to Utah. And so I did. And I packed up, I tossed out our home and packed up the tiniest little U-Haul and drove to Utah with my 2 daughters and started fresh in my best friend's basement on a credit card and the little bit that I had in savings from the policies that I had written right before that.
Backing up just a little bit, what was it like building a connection with the client in home, and then say versus telesales now?
It was honestly the biggest mental shift I had to make, because every call I went into, I just went into like terrified for some reason. I was like, there's no way someone's going to want to talk to me about insurance over the phone. Like, who? And I started really having to shift my mindset and go in there in a completely different way. And then I started closing. But in person was easy for me. I'm not going to lie. In person, I got in front of them and I closed them. Virtual telesales, that was not the case. And it was really hard for me to feel like I was really good at something and be like, I got this. And then go to something and be like, I suck. Like, what am I going to do? This is how I was paying for my kids this way. And now it's gone. Like, what do I do? And Utah just didn't have the ability for me to go in home anymore. So it was okay, Kasey. Like, you don't have many other options right now. This is your option. This is your blessing. It's not that this is all you have. This is a blessing. So figure out how to use it, get your mind straight. Otherwise, you're going to lose it.
I think something that you've been saying that's kind of been consistent throughout this call is that no matter what challenge has been thrown in front of you, you tell yourself, I need to get through it and I'm going to do it, right? So you got this commitment about you that no matter what challenges, that you're going to overcome it. And I think that's a key formula that you need no matter what business you're in or whatever it is that you're doing. If you have a goal, that's where you need to be. In the beginning, it sounds like it was a survival of the fittest type of thing. You had to survive. But it also sounds like now, as you progressed, you learn to use that never say die, even in situations where it's not a survival thing. It's just, I need to get to the next goal, which I think really says a lot about your character and the person that you are. One of the questions people are asking is, how long ago did you move to Utah?
March 25th, 2022. So just 2 years. It just hit 2 years last month.
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And what would you say is different between then and now in your life?
Oh God, so much. I mean, listen, life is always going to have struggles. And I'm learning that a really hard way recently is I can't always control what's going to happen in my life. I'm really trying to work on the control I have with my mindset when it comes. But man, when I moved here, I mean, we had nothing. We literally had the tiniest U-Haul and my car packed up to my kids' car seats, living in my best friend's basement. And it was her husband saying like, Kasey, do you think you can do this? Like, how are you gonna, I mean, I believe in you. I know you can do this, but like, how? And I was like, I got this. I got this. I will never be the person that knows I have 2 kids to raise and like, won't have it. I will do things I hopefully never will have to do to make sure those kids are always provided for. Like, look, I got good teeth, but they're probably not that great. I just don't want to go down that avenue. Like, I'd love to just stay in insurance. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do what I have to do for my kids. And so, I mean, that went from living in a basement and trying to pay off credit cards to having our home we live in now. And I have my own office in my house, and my kids have their own rooms. And I mean, a lot's changed. I mean, the ability to travel and to see my family now, like before we didn't have the income to travel back and forth to Michigan. Now I can. The ability to go to Paul's baby shower when I wanted to, that was a spur of the moment thing. And it was like, hey, let's book a trip to California. And my daughter just started softball and I was able to pay for that. My daughter's in a lot of specialty doctors. I can pay for that. Like, a lot's changed where it's, yes, I still have the struggles and I still have the anxiety of how, okay, like I have these bills coming up or whatever, but I know with this career, I've been able to make it. And I don't worry about us failing, because I know ultimately when push comes to shove, I will be able to do what I have to do to keep us going where we need to go.
One of the things I really wanted to kind of dive in, and it's all if you're open and sharing, okay? You recently had become more of a client for life insurance, and you kind of dived in more into that just so you could set your family up in a better situation. What kind of led you down that path, and what did you discover?
So I started going through some health stuff that was a little bit scary. And ultimately, my doctor was saying we need to get these tests done to make sure that we can rule out cancer. And pretty much when you hear that, I mean, everything just kind of shifts. And I was like, wait, there's a lump in my neck. It's not cancer. Like, it's just, And so we started testing for it. And at that time, my daughter is going through some of her own medical stuff. And it just kind of hit me where I was like, oh my God, like my grandma passed away from stomach cancer. She was the healthiest woman I had ever seen in my life. And then bam, like that, we lost her. And it just kind of hit me where I'm like, I'm trying so hard and I feel like I'm invincible in a lot of ways, but what if I'm not? Like, what if the CT comes back and I don't get to see my daughters walk down the aisle, or if they want to have kids or whatever. And so I started really trying. I pulled back from work a lot. I focused on my life and my mental health through that. And I put a lot of policies in place. I contacted my financial advisor and I told him, we're pretty set up. I've done pretty well with that, but there's other things, I think about it and I'm working my ass off trying to make sure that we're provided for every month. And then I stop and I'm like, I need 6 months of savings, 6 months of my life. Like if something was to go wrong, I believe that you should have 6 months set aside. So that's in a brokerage account. It's growing as we speak. But I was also like, do I need an extra whatever a month to feel happy? Or like, am I good if I pay my bills and I have extra to put aside for these policies and put aside for my daughters and do the things that they need to do? Like, am I good? And I'm like, yeah, we are 1099s. We can set up Roth IRAs for our daughters. You put $6,500 in 1 year at 4 years old or whatever, like watch what their retirement looks like. If I pass away, they're far better income wise than they are now with me. So I started kind of shifting my mindset as to like, okay, what do I need? And I don't want to just barely make it. I want to make it and have a good cushion, but like, what do I need in place to make sure if something happened, my daughters are taken care of, but I'm also still able to really be present with them right now. And so I started getting all that set up. Both my daughters have an IUL that's growing for them. I have term policies, and once those expire, we flipped them so that at that 30-year mark, the IUL starts changing to compensate for what I lose at my term. And we just started really getting things into place, or I did, to make sure that my daughters have the success that I hope they will have, that they're going to have. And that financial legacy that I'm leaving behind doesn't just come from how hard I'm working right now. It comes from what I'm setting in place to do the work for me. And I started realizing that where if I'm putting these in place to do the work for me, that gives me the ability to spend time with my daughters that a lot of single moms don't have. And so I'm taking advantage of that right now, and I have absolutely no guilt for it.
Yes. And congratulations to you. All these different challenges, they kind of woke you up to something else, it sounds like, that you needed to prepare for, because it sounds like you've gone through so much and now your preparation is so solid that even if something did, God forbid, happen to you, your kids is fine, which goes in hand in what we do for the clients. So now you've had your own experience and you've always been really good at painting the picture when it comes to sales. So maybe you could kind of dive in a little bit on how you paint a picture with the client and how your own situation helped make you better at discovering their situations and filling those holes for them.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really been afraid to paint a picture for somebody. Sometimes it's a little bit harsh. I try to do it in the nicest way I can, but I think I've shared the story on here before, how there was a husband and wife. The husband did not want the stay-at-home mom and wife to have coverage. It was too much money and just no. And I painted that picture of like, hey, listen, I'm a single mom. I know how hard it is to raise daughters with no additional income. And I don't think that's what you want for someone that you love. And your wife's right here. You guys have no savings. You don't have anything in place. So tell me, like, what's going to happen with your wife and your kids if something happened to you, God forbid, tomorrow? And he couldn't answer me. And I said, I understand budget. Like, take it from somebody that's doing it on their own. Like, I get it. But this is hugely important. And so why don't we do a half mortgage payoff? I'll add on accidental. If it's an accident, your mortgage is paid off for your wife and your kids. And so we did. 5 days later, I had gotten the pre-approval, but I got the final email 5 days later. It's been issued and everything. So I texted him and I said, congratulations, your wife and your kids are protected. Didn't hear back from him. A month later, to the date of when I wrote that policy, I got a death claim. He had passed away on the day that I sent him that message saying you're approved, and it was an accidental cause. So that wife and those kids were protected simply because I started trying to paint the picture for them of what that would look like. Hey, your wife is going to lose you. Your kids are going to lose you. They have no money. They're going to be struggling to pay anything. And then that bank comes in and they take the home and they take all the equity that you as a couple built into that home with your family. Like, I don't think that's what you want. And so for me now, being younger, I'm 30. I talk to I think we all know The 20 to 30-year-olds are hard. They think they're invincible. Nothing's going to happen. I'm young. I'm healthy. Great.
Right.
So am I. My blood pressure, I was just told today, phenomenal. Okay. We're good. But things still happen.
So kind of segueing back to the client, I think what a lot of us, we get so wrapped up in the sales part of it and, making sales, and we kind of lose a little bit sometimes on why this is such an important profession and helping the clients that we do get to sit down and talk to. It's kind of a privilege, right? We get to help them and their family and protect them. What would you say if like some of the agents here, they might not know exactly how to be direct with somebody, or you get somebody with a little bit of pushback? How do you address the pushback? Let's say it's completely different than the scenario you got just recently with the husband, right? That doesn't happen too often. A lot of people don't know that these stories really happen, but they do. But let's say you have a couple and it's more of the wife saying that, they just don't think it's important for them. They have some savings. Let's say they have like, I don't know, 15,000 in savings, and their mortgage is, 250,000, right? And maybe they have a life insurance policy that's 100. So she's like, I don't know if we really need this, right? How are you discovering, what's the process you go through to discover the hole? And then how do you, be direct with them about the lapse in coverage?
So I try to, what's the word? Redirect. There's a word I'm missing. I try to show the benefits of, like, you have $100,000 policy. Great. So, most of us have multiple policies in place, and there's reasons for that. I'm assuming when you took out that policy, that $100,000 is because you guys are very aware that when something happens to either one of you, half of your income is gone. So you're going to need an income replacement, because you're now losing half of what you're used to pay your bills, your utilities, your cost of living, finance, just everything. We all know how much cost of living is these days. So I'm assuming that's what you took out to cover that loss of income that you're about to have. Now, is that correct? Yeah. Okay, great. So that's to handle the loss of income, right? Now, $15,000 in savings, that's great, honestly. And I try really hard to celebrate my clients, because that is great. There's not many people that have $15,000 in their savings account. So celebrate them with them. Like, Paul, I'm so happy that you have $15,000 in your account. Honestly, that's far more than most of what I see in a lot of clients that I deal with. But let's be fair. You have a leak in your roof and something happens, all of a sudden you have to replace that roof, and then there's drywall issues or whatever the case may be. That's kind of what your savings is for, that emergency funds, right? Because if something happened and you needed money right then, you're going to need that $15,000 for those type of repairs, for the unexpected. So great, your savings is for the unexpected, your life little here and there's that you need. Your income replacement is your life insurance policy. Now, what we're talking about today, Paul, is your home. So if something happened to you and, your wife and your daughter were left there and they had that $15,000 and then the roof leaked and they had to use that, and that $100,000 is going to go fast because that's what their income is that they're used to. What do you have in place for your house? What's going to protect your wife and your daughter so that when you pass and they're mourning and grieving that time, the bank doesn't come in and say, hey, I know you just lost Paul, but we're going to take that home and we take all the equity in that home. So you don't even have time to sell it to try and downsize or get reestablished with your daughter somewhere better. We're just going to take that. Then what? And so I kind of just leave it with, so that's kind of what I'm seeing. Like when I break it down and I'm looking at your guys' scenario, if I was to paint the picture, this is kind of how I'm painting it. Tell me, what's your plan? What are you guys, what's your thoughts on this? What would happen to Aldine and your daughter if something did happen? Now that we've talked about where these funds are going, what's in place for the mortgage? And then that allows them opportunity to think about what you just said, hear all of it, because they hadn't thought about it that way, and then respond to you like, yeah, I actually don't. You're right, I don't. And it's just kind of, and then there's still, people that are going to be like, hey, I don't know, I can't. And it really is truly just about retweaking and painting that picture a little bit brighter for them to see, like, there's holes. And if you're saying that you want your family to be protected the way that I think we all do when we take a vow to another person, there shouldn't be holes. So let's fill them. And if it's about budget, no problem. I'm a queen of budget. Clearance section, my jam. Like, let's find you something that's good. And then we go from there. And I think that's also a thing is I don't ever want my clients, and I'll straight up tell them, I will not put a client in a policy that they don't feel like they can continue. It does them no good. It does their family no good. So is that
Right.
$50? Is that going to be comfortable, or every month are you going to be scraping by to figure out how you're going to pay that? I'm like, no, it's a little much. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quarter mortgage payoff. We're going to add accidental. We're going to fit your budget right now. And later on, when finances change, you give me a call and you say, hey, Kasey, I think we're ready. We're going to go ahead and increase that. And guess what? We're going to submit for it then. But until that time, you have protection for your family. And that is the main goal. And then, I mean, with that, it's like, how are you going to say no? And I'll straight up tell them it's $20. Can you give up 2 Starbucks for your wife? I've said that so many times. And when you put it like that, I mean, shoot, you tell me no, I'll hang up on you right then and there anyway. Like, give up 2 Starbucks for your wife.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, right? You're not even thinking in the right frame of mind. Why am I wasting my time on the call? When you were a newer agent, what was some of the objections that you came across, and how have you changed the way you present so that you don't get those objections now as often?
I think we all probably struggle in our own ways at first with banking or social. So for me, especially because I was nervous to ask for it. I think that's a huge thing, is people pick up on your tones. I go into my calls very confident. I go into them, I feel like I'm doing you a service. This is my job. I'm getting paid for it. So I'm going to do my very best I can. This is not just, me giving you a call just to chat. Like, we're going to do that. But at the same time, I'm very confident with what I'm about to present to you. And so exactly. I think going in extremely confident is huge. And that builds your credibility. But in the very beginning, I send my credibility. I want that out in the open. I want them to see my picture with me and my daughters. I want them to be able to hear me say, go on your State Department of Insurance website, type in my NPN and verify me. From the very beginning, I try so hard to make sure that they know they're talking to another human being that is not trying to just sell them. I'm trying to just make sure they're comfortable. We're going to talk about some personal stuff. So here we go. But that also comes with a lot of confidence of knowing, hey, I do this 1,000 times a day. Why would you question me? Mary and Jim didn't, and it's really just about, this is my job. This is what we have to do. Verify me. You want insurance? Here you go. I'm going to give it to you. But I think just having that credibility right at the beginning is like, it's so solid for sales. You don't want to try and recoup that. And when people at the end are like, I don't want to give my social or whatever, my banking, I'll say, I understand. I know this is really sensitive information. That's actually why in the very beginning of our call, I made sure that you had all my credentials, because I do want you to be able to verify me. So I don't ask them to do it. I tell them, you see that link I just texted you in your text messages? Yeah, go ahead and click it for me. All right, now on the top left corner, you're going to see a few bars. I want you to click that, click home and find your state. You're going to click your state and we're going to type in my NPN together. I want you to see all of my credentials so we can verify this, because ultimately you're about to give me some personal information and I don't want to take it if you're not comfortable giving it. So then they go on, they'll literally walk it through. Oh yeah, Kasey started in Detroit, blah, blah. Okay, all right, 625, whatever. And it just goes. But it really is about building the credibility in the very beginning and then having it so you can reinforce it at the end if you still need it. I think that's a big thing. It's just that credibility.
What's some advice that you would give maybe more of a senior agent, someone that's been around a while, but maybe kind of going through a funk and wanting to get out, or maybe they just need one sale to kind of break the momentum in their favor? What's 2 or 3 things that you would give as advice?
I'd reach out. I think a huge thing, and I mean, this, Paul, I do what all my friends know as hermit mode. Kasey's in hermit mode right now. Instagram goes deactivated. No one hears from me. I'm just silent. And although that's been a coping mechanism for me for a long time, I understand that it's not necessarily the healthiest, because now I do have a community around me that wants me to succeed. And I think that's the really cool thing, and that differentiates our group and our team from so many others, is the atmosphere and the culture of, we just want each other to succeed. It's not like, oh, Paul's winning and God, I'm so jealous. It's like, my friend is winning. Like, that's so cool. And so we always want to see each other win. And I think having this mindset of reaching out, saying, hey, I'm struggling, it's not a downfall. It's actually it's a good strength to develop. Because when you reach out to people and say, hey, like, I'm humbling myself right now. I thought I was really good, but like, I'm struggling. I'm not making sales. My finances are weak. That's great. That's when people can come in and talk to you and help you and guide you. Because what you don't realize, and what I haven't realized a lot, and I'm starting to as I get older, is like, a lot of these struggles I go through every day are a lot of struggles that others around me go through, and we don't talk about them. But when we have a community that comes together and builds each other up, and you're not a failure today, Kasey, because you weren't able to do this. You succeeded because you were able to do this and this, and despite that time, you still conquered this. And being able to be recognized for that and reassured of that is really, really huge. And so I think going to your community, going to friends, anybody that you feel trusted with, is huge. So I think with this job, being able to have boundaries and understand that you don't have to work 14 hours a day to be successful. I think a lot of us go into this and think like, God, if I don't do this, I'm not going to be a top producer. You're going to be fine if you take care of yourself. If your body's like, go 14 hours, great. But my body's not. Yeah. And so when your body says, hey, calm down, take a rest break, and then go back and keep working at yourself, do it. You don't stay at the gym all day long and then go back the next day and not expect to be freaking sore and continue to do that without a break. You got to give your muscles a break. So I think with seasoned agents, give those breaks, prioritize your health, and prioritize your boundaries. This business, there's no boundaries. We're all friends, we're family, and then we're coworkers, and it gets mixed up really hard. And sometimes when you just need to sit and cook a dinner and be to yourself, it's okay to not answer the phone. 8 billion people in this world don't deserve your attention every second of the day. You do. So focus on that and then give them what they need later when you're healthy. And I think that's huge. That's right. And so when I started realizing, okay, my life is a little chaotic right now. Mentally, I'm not great. And I can't really control as much as I want to there. My work's a little chaotic and mentally I'm not great, but I can control a little bit more there. So being able to figure out where I can control things. And again, that comes into taking care of myself, where it's like we talked the other day, Paul, you're like, okay, so this isn't your goal anymore. And I understand that. So what is your goal? And I just broke down crying. I said, I don't know. I just need to make it right now. I just got to pay my bills. I need to make sure I have savings. I need to make sure my daughters are good. But like, I just got to make it, Paul. And he said, okay, so what do you got to do? He's like, that if you can write this much on the weekends, then for the rest of the week, if you have appointments and stuff, like your daughters, you got that, right? And again, this comes back to community. It's like Paul talking to me about that clicked in my head where it's like, okay, Kasey, like if you can make sure Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, whatever, if you have crazy amount of doctor appointments, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, like you're okay because you just took care of yourself this weekend. And so it's about figuring out where I have to take care of myself and where I can work this business to do so, and those boundaries that come in between all of it. But this career has been, it's allowed me to do that. And
crazy, right? Because you couldn't do that in a normal job to say, I'm going to realign my work days and schedule to make it. It just, good luck.
I think all the time, like, man, I have to take my daughters to all these appointments. And it's like, if I had asked for this much time off, I'd be gone. I couldn't even work a career I worked for 7 years because my daughter wasn't eating and I couldn't give my availability after my newborn. Right. No one cares about that. And so now I think, man, if I continue to try and live the lifestyle I do, I'd have to work 3 or 4 jobs and I'd never see my kids. And right now I'm a single mom taking them to all their appointments, taking them to their softball games, taking them to their friend's house on weekends and going fishing. And this career it's hard, but it's phenomenal. And it has blessed me with the ability to be the most present mom that I can be right now. And still I'm growing with this career. Because of this career, it's teaching me, I think, far more valuable lessons than just how to sell insurance or, how to make an income. Like there's a lot of mental things that come with this business where when you get your mind straight and you have the right team around you listening and helping you, like you grow in exponential ways. Is that a word? Yeah, that's right. And I think it's beautiful. So for the new agents that are coming on, like it's hard, guys. It's not easy. This career it's not just a walk in the park, but it's so rewarding. And I would not be in it if it wasn't blessing me in the most abundant ways every single day. I seriously I'm with my kids every single event, every field trip, everything. And I don't know how in the world I have been blessed with that. I thank my God above, because it's not something you hear a lot of stories from single moms. And This is my life now, and we live comfortably. And this career has allowed me to do that. And so I always joke, I'm like, we're going to start a team. It's going to be called the Sugar Mamas. Like, we got this, but it's doable and it's capable and it's hard, but it's worth it.
Yep. Well, I just want to say, to you, Kasey, again, thank you so much for hopping on here. And you know how much I really appreciate you and how much I value your story, because I think it touches so many different people's hearts. Thanks again. If everybody could just, unmute and say thank you to Kasey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kasey.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Kasey.
you, Rock.
Thank you, Cassie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kasey.
Thank you, Kasey.
Yeah.
And again, thanks so much, Kasey. I really appreciate you.